Hi everyone, it's Miss Byrd. Welcome back to our video. Today we're going to talk about solving linear equations. There's different approaches for this, and this is not only good for Algebra 1, but it's also good for pre-algebra, for example, 8th grade math. So here, to determine whether a value of a solution is the solution of the equation, you're going to substitute the value into the equation. So the directions say determine whether x equals -2 is a solution. That means for this equation, the 5x minus 1 equals 4, if we substitute that -2 into where x is, does it come out true or false? So that's what we're going to check here. Okay, so let's get started. So where x is, we're going to go ahead and substitute that -2. So it's actually 5. And then when they're squished together, when 5 and x are squished together like that, it means to multiply. So we're going to multiply the substitution, which is -2. And then it says -1 equals 4. Okay, so we plugged it in and you were going to do order of operations. We have multiplication and subtraction. So you want to multiply. 5 times -2 is -10. And then bring everything down. So we have -1 equals 4. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and combine our like terms. We have -10 minus 1. Remember, they have different signs. And so here we have, they have the same signs. So we have a -2 and a -1. So because they have the same signs, we're going to add them. So -10 plus a -1 is -11. And that equals 4. And then you want to check, okay, does -11 equal 4? Wrong, it does not. So they do not equal to each other. So I'm going to just put that little cross through there. That means does not equal. And because they do not equal, then x equals -2 is not a solution. So here you would put, determine whether x equals -2 is a solution. You would say no. Okay, no for no, it's not a solution. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to number 2. So number 2 says solve each equation. So now we're going to solve, okay? Number 2, we have here 4x minus 3 equals 13. So this equal sign is kind of like the middle of the balance beam. So we're going to go ahead and draw a little line there. You don't have to draw this upside down T. It's just a lot of students like to do that just to show the balance. Okay, so here we have variables with numbers, and on this side of the balance we have numbers. So we want to keep variables on one side and numbers on the other side. So notice how I have a constant here by itself, and then here I have 4x minus 3. This constant here, we're going to go ahead and merge it to the other side. So anytime you move a variable or a constant to the other side of the equals, you have to do the inverse operation. So right now it says to subtract 3 or minus 3. So the opposite of subtraction is to add. So we're going to say plus 3, and then here plus 3. So whatever you do to the left, you do the same to the right. These cancel each other out because they end up being 0. So we don't have to write 0. We're just going to bring down the 4x. Right here, the 13 plus 3 equals 16. So now you have 4x equals 16. So we want to get x alone. So we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 4 because the inverse operation is to divide. Okay, so the 4's cancel out because 4 divided by 4 is 1, and you end up with x equals 4. Okay, so that's the solution for this equation. Here for number 3, notice how we have 2, and then it says open parentheses. So we actually have to distribute the 2 into each term here. So to distribute into each term, we're going to multiply 2 times y, which is 2y, and then 2 times -8, which is -16. And then you bring everything else down because you didn't have to do anything to the other side. Okay, so now we're going to do the balance. So we're going to move variables to one side, numbers to the other side, okay? Okay, so let me go ahead and switch my pen here. Okay, so remember we want variables on one side, numbers on the other, so we're going to move y to join 2y. So right now it's a positive y, so the inverse of that would be minus y. Remember, we're doing inverse operations. Okay, so 2y minus 1y, remember, there is an invisible 1 in front of y. So when you subtract those, you end up with 1y, but we don't have to write the 1, so we're just going to leave it invisible. And then you can bring everything down, minus 16 equals 6. Then the next step would be to get y alone, so we're going to move the constant 16 to the other side. So I don't know what happened there. Oops. Let me go ahead and fix that. And I'm just writing everywhere. Look at this. Oops. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we're going to move 16. So because it says minus 16, we're going to add 16. Add 16. So these cancel each other out, and you end up with y by itself equals 6 plus 16 is 22. And that's our final answer. Okay, let's move on. Now we have a fraction here. Okay, so anytime you have a fraction and you need to find the variable, find the solution, with this fraction here, we're going to do the inverse operation. So 1/4 times r, the inverse of multiplication, is to divide, but you can't divide fractions. So you're going to do the keep, change, flip, which actually means instead of divide, you're gonna, instead of divide, you're gonna multiply. And so we have multiply by the reciprocal. So we're gonna multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 1/4. So I'm just gonna rewrite this. We have 1/4 equals 40. And of course, the reciprocal of 1/4 is 4 over 1, which is still 4. And you have to multiply it to both sides. So over here as well, times 4. What ends up happening here is when you do 4 times 1/4, you end up with 4 over 4, which is 1. And remember I told you 1 is invisible in front of the r, so we don't have to put 1. So these cancel out, and r is alone. And then we're going to go ahead and multiply 40 times 4, which is 160. There you go. Number 5. Now notice we have variables on both sides and constants, and that's okay. Let's go ahead and solve this. So over here, we're going to move constants with constants and variables with variables. So the inverse of 5c would be positive 5c plus 5c. These cancel each other out, so negative 3c plus 5c is 2c. And then we have plus 4 equals 22 is left over by itself. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move the constants with each other. So positive 4 becomes minus 4 and minus 4. These cancel each other out, so you end up with 2c equals, now 22 minus 4 is 18. And then here you want to get c alone, so we're going to go ahead and divide because we're doing the inverse operation. We're going to divide both sides by the constant, the coefficient here. And the coefficient is 2, so it's divide by 2, divide by 2. 2 over 2 cancels out, so c equals 9. Okay, that's it for this lesson. So I hope that helped to solve linear equations. Please feel free to contact me if you have any any questions, or contact your teacher if you have any questions, okay? All right, have a good one. Bye.